Hello there. Trying something a little bit different with the blog this week. A audio blog, basically. Just need to think of a name for it. Blogcast. That's what I'm going to go for. Let's call it a blogcast. I have been writing the blog now for over 10 years, would you believe? Fortnightly, every 2 weeks. Haven't missed many over that time period. So I thought maybe it was time to freshen it up. And the plan is I'm going to do this once a fortnight still. Sit in my home studio, have a cup of tea, and basically chat through what would have been written down in the blog. That's the plan. Let's see how it goes. The other Friday I went to Ascot with a group of my mates. We started it back in 2017. Kind of all got a bit busy in our own lives and we didn't really meet up that often. So we decided to all meet up at a weekend event at Ascot Races, and that was the plan. First year, I think all of us turned up. From that, we set up a WhatsApp group, which we still use for regular chat, and I'm going to use the word banter, but we don't seem to get together even on that prescribed day as often as we'd like to. Things weren't helped, of course, by COVID and the racing being closed for at least one of the years. I think we've only just all managed to be there once so far, but we'll keep trying. This year we got 4 of us there in the end, which is not really a bad turnout, I suppose. Had a fantastic day. We always go on the Friday because it's a little bit quieter. And this meeting, well, it started off as a beer festival meeting, and we kind of went because they had lots of different beers to try. It's kind of developed a bit over the years. I'm less keen on the beer festival now. I'm a celiac, therefore gluten-free, therefore cannot drink any of the beers. But what we found was the beer festival was kind of in the lower, cheaper area of Ascot. If you pay a whopping £25, you can go to the King Edward enclosure, which is basically the Royal Box area on Royal Ascot Week. Great views, you're right over the finish line, there's bars up there, so that's now what we do. Although the first year we did that, there was a bit of a dress code to get into that particular section, and on the WhatsApp group I made a point of putting exactly what the dress code was for us to get in. One of our mates turned up, and as soon as he arrived and met the rest of us, I clocked him. I could see he was missing something. My first question before I'd even said hello was, have you got a tie, mate? To which he replied no. And that led to an interesting conversation with the security guard where he was trying to get into the enclosure, claiming that a pocket handkerchief is exactly the same as the tie. Guy wasn't having it, so he wasn't going to let him in. We all went in and got our first drinks and carried on with our day because that's the sort of friends we are. We sent him out to try and get a tie. He found some ties inside Ascot. The cheapest one inside the racecourse itself was something ridiculous, like about 30 quid or something for a tie. So he heads out of Ascot down to the high street, manages to buy a tie for about 10-15 quid. So half an hour later, he joins us, all fine. Anyway, this year, once again, I sent out the dress code. Everybody managed to get it right. So we all got in, which was fine. No queue at all. And we had a great day. I didn't win a thing at the races. I lost every single race, but it wasn't particularly a good day for me. The way I tend to bet, I don't often bet on the favourites, so there's lots of favourites won, which is why I didn't get anything. But all the other guys, they managed to get a few winners. I managed to locate and find a picture outside the Royal Box area. They wouldn't let me in, obviously. We hadn't seen each other all together for a while. One of my mates in that group, I don't think I've seen him for at least 2.5, maybe 3 years. So it was great to catch up, have a chat. Wasn't too busy as well. After the racing had finished, we decided to go to a pub for a couple of more drinks. Well, we'd not seen each other for a while, had we? So we found one of the local pubs down the bottom of the high street that we tend to go to after every Ascot event. It's not quite the first one you come to, so it's a little bit quieter. So we got in there, they had a disco on, we found some seats and just continued having a good time basically until it was time to disappear and go, which I think was about 10 o'clock in the end. I was staying at one of my mates' houses, and when we came to go, and I only found this out the next morning, when he initially tried to call us a taxi, he somehow dialed the wrong number on his phone and got through to his wife, who he promptly woke up. She told him that she was his wife and he'd just woken her up, yet he still tried to order a taxi off her. He got the message eventually and he did manage to get us a taxi, so we got back to his place. His wife pulled an absolute blinder. She'd got some pizzas for the kids earlier on and very kindly ordered us some pizzas as well. So there was a gluten-free pizza sitting in the fridge waiting for me, which was absolutely perfect. Just what I needed at that point. Next morning, I seemed to wake up first. His 2 kids are in the living room, so I'm going to have a chat to them and a bit of a catch up with them, find out what they've been up to and what they're doing. Then my mate comes downstairs. He's managed to lose his phone, can't find his phone anywhere, so we're searching around for his phone, and then we're doing that thing, we're trying to retrace our steps and trying to work out where we are. We checked everywhere. We worked out the phone had to be in the taxi we got home, couldn't have been anywhere else. So we phoned the taxi company. Obviously the guy who took us home the night before, he was working the night shift, so he'd gone home, he was asleep, didn't start until later in the day. So my mate had that agonising wait. Pretty sure we knew where the phone was. Then you've got to hope that the taxi driver found it and is a good honest guy and going to return it, or you've got to hope that there weren't loads of different people using the taxi after us. One of those found it and took it. Later that afternoon, the taxi driver very kindly, pretty much as soon as he started shift, drove round to my mate's place. He got his phone back. We're all good. Everything's perfectly fine. And it was a great weekend. Well, with the exception of, for me, we went racing on the Friday. I stayed at his house on the Friday night. On the Saturday, it was a train strike day. Normally, I'd have got a very short taxi back to a train station and then a train home to my house. This time, I had to order a taxi all the way home to my house. It's about a 40-minute journey, so it wasn't too bad. The taxi driver who took me was a really nice bloke. We had a good chat. The fact that I didn't get any winnings the day before and had to pay for a taxi did seem to rub salt into my wounds a little bit. And part of the reason I opted for a taxi and not to take a few buses home was I wanted to be back home to watch the North London derby. Being a Tottenham fan, as it turned out, maybe I should not have bothered rushing back quite so much. But ever the optimist, although joking aside, I knew it would be a difficult game. We have a terrible record at the Emirates at Arsenal's ground, so it's always tough. You never know how North London derbies or any London derbies are going to go. It was fairly even, I thought, up to a point. Then we gave the goal away just after half time when the goalie made a bit of an error, very unusually. And then not long after that, we had a man sent off and conceded a third goal. So we got beaten quite comprehensively 3-1 in the end. So that wasn't ideal. But overall, I'm quite happy with how Tottenham are doing at the moment. We managed to win at Brighton last weekend. Difficult game. Happy with the points there. We're still just about in the Champions League. I will be delighted with a top 4 finish this year. And if we can win a cup in the process, that would be great. But I'm still enjoying going to the games with my season ticket. And it really is an emotional roller coaster when you are a Spurs fan. I am an extremely lucky man. If you have read the blog over the last couple of years, you'll know that my girlfriend is an excellent cook. She enjoys cooking and she's very good at adapting recipes so that I can eat them. With my celiac disease, I can't have anything that's been anywhere near gluten. That causes her some frustration, some annoyance, but she does always find a way round it and does produce some excellent food, and often things I've never tried before. For example, the other weekend, she made me lasagna, which was a chicken, mushroom and pesto lasagna. Tasted amazing. I would have never thought of having that combination in a lasagna myself, but it was really, really good. And to top that off as well, she made me a chocolate roulade for dessert. It was huge as well. It lasted a couple of weeks. Fantastic. Now, it's fair to say, when we are at Linda's place, she does do most of the cooking, but that weekend on the Sunday, very unusually, she actually let me loose in the kitchen. Now, it's not that she doesn't necessarily trust my cooking skills. They're not great, but I can feed myself. It's fine. The food is edible. It's just that she doesn't like other people touching her stuff in her kitchen, which I kind of get. But she did us a sausage casserole, and I got to cook the sausages. Yeah, she let me cook the sausages, actually let us cook in the kitchen at the same time, and it was okay. There was no rows. It was fine. I walked away and let her finish the casserole, which again was another culinary triumph. Last weekend, Linda and I went to her great auntie's 90th birthday party. It was at a venue that was just down the road from me that I've been to once before. My uncle Mick had his 60th birthday party there. Really good place. I know it's the Lambert Arms. I think it's called the Lambert Hotel now, but it's just off the M40. Really nice function room. Good place for a do. Now, as it turns out, Linda's great auntie and most of her family live in the same town as me. So I got to meet them all at the party. I knew every single place that each of them lived. There was about 6 or 7 of them. I need to when I'm at home and walking around the town, we'll need to keep an eye out for them. I bet it's one of those things. We've kind of been living in the same town all together for years, but not known each other. Now we've all met each other. I suspect everywhere we go, we'll bump into each other. I don't think I'll be able to stop seeing these people probably for the next year or so, everywhere I go locally. But it'd be great. They're all really nice people, so it's not a problem. It's just one of those things. It's similar to, you know, when a friend or a family member gets a particular car or a colour of a car, and you've never seen that car in that colour before. Once someone you know has got a new, different car, every other car you see looks like that car. We took Linda's car and Linda's mum came with us as well. Linda drove on the way there, mainly so I could keep an eye on the Tottenham game, which was still going on at that point. Handily, we arrived just as the game was ending, so I just got to see the full-time score before we went into the party, which was perfect. Now, I was not drinking because I was going to drive us home, which was another landmark moment. I have been on the insurance for Linda's car for, I think, at least a year and a half. This was going to be only the second time she'd let me drive her car. I'm a good driver. I do lots of driving. I've been driving for 27 years now, so I'm pretty good. But she doesn't really like other people driving her cars. But it was her family party, and I'd had my 4th COVID booster jab on the Thursday before, so therefore I thought I'd give myself a week off alcohol just to let that bed in and settle itself down. Talking of my jab, I think I've tried pretty much every product on the range. I've definitely had the AstraZeneca, I had the Pfizer, and this time I had the Moderna. I think that's the one that Dolly Parton helped fund, so I was quite keen to try that one. Although I will say, that one probably affected me the most. My arm was quite sore. I did feel a bit tired for a day or so after that, but all good. I'm fully jabbed, and I've also got my flu jab next week as well. Being an asthmatic and a celiac, I'll take all the jabs they want to give me. Anything that means I'm not going to get too ill from anything I may catch, I'm fully on board with. As a result of that, and the fact it was Linda's family's party, I was driving. The party was great fun. The speeches were great. One thing I liked, they did the disco themselves. They obviously, within the family, have all the equipment, and so they set up a playlist and did the disco, which I guess gives you the freedom to do what you want. One thing I will say, not a criticism, just an observation. Obviously, as a DJ, I've done many, many years of DJing in bars and all sorts of events. I'm going to stick up for having DJs here. DJs will keep the music flowing, they can alter it, they can be a bit of a chat in between the music. The way it was set up, songs faded out, a little bit of a gap, and then the next song, you can lose a little bit of momentum in those situations, in my opinion. That said, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and was up on the dance floor at least 2 or 3 times during the night. Once again proving there's absolutely no way I'd be able to make it past week 1 in Strictly Come Dancing. Although, having seen Tony Adams the last couple of weeks, maybe I could. The birthday girl, who, as I mentioned earlier, was 90 actually on the day, she was virtually never off the dance floor. It was quite spectacular. She seemed to have so much energy. Looks great for her age as well. She had a really good night. She was dancing with her grandchildren, mainly I think because her children couldn't actually keep up with her. We were driving back to Linda's place, but there were about 50 of them all staying in the place where the party was, because it has rooms there. It's a hotel as well. And I reckon there was going to be an after party going on for at least another 2 or 3 hours. Party animals. And just to confirm, I did drive. It was all perfectly fine. On the way home, I worked out it was almost a year to the day to the last time she'd actually let me drive the car. I do offer a lot. I offer all the time. So I'm always happy to drive. I don't mind driving. She does all the driving, which I don't mind. I quite like being chauffeured around, I will admit, but at the same time, happy to do my share. That said, I reckon I'll probably be okay for at least another 12 months before I have to drive her anywhere again. There's a new series of Taskmaster on Channel 4. I do absolutely love that programme. I'm always impressed and amazed at just the quality of guests they get on there. They get people on there. You know, some shows like that where it's tasks and games. I'm thinking of stuff like I'm a Celebrity in particular, and other reality TV shows like that. It's normally people who need a bit of a boost or are on their way down who do those sort of shows. Taskmaster, generally these are comedians right at the top of their game who still feel they need to give it a go. And they're always the most brilliant, because the people you think are generally very intelligent, very clever, maybe through their comedy, they sometimes lack basic common sense, and that can often be found out in Taskmaster. David Baddiel springs to mind when talking about people like that. But it's another great lineup. My two favourites are Sarah Millican and Dara O'Brien. And fair play, they are both very, very competitive. And not only that, they seem to get quite angry quite quickly. And nothing is funnier than the celebrities on that show getting angry, particularly because Alex Horne in the actual task just does his absolute best to wind them up and make things as difficult as possible. And I think it does make for some brilliant TV. I was in the front row once for a Dara O'Brien comedy gig in Tring. I got there late and I don't mind sitting in the front row. I've seen Dara perform before. He's not a mean guy. He's a very fun, nice, lovely guy. Anyway, I was in the front row and he tends to chat to everyone in the front row. So we had a chat. He didn't really stay with me for that long. I don't think he got too much comedy gold out of me, which is a shame because if it had stuck with it a bit longer, we could have been the new Morecambe and Wise, I reckon. But I am really enjoying this series of Taskmaster, and I think Dara O'Brien will do very well. He is a very clever man, and he's got that physics and science side. He did a degree in all that. All his qualifications are in that. So I think he'll do some spectacular outside-the-box thinking, and he could do some amazing things in some of those tasks. While we're talking about TV shows, there's one that I refuse to watch for about the first 4 years, and I'll be honest, it's because I'd already made my mind up about it before I'd even seen it. It is Gogglebox, and just the idea of sitting watching someone watching TV and talking about it, I could not see the appeal whatsoever. And then Linda convinced me to watch a couple of the celebrity Goggleboxes, which actually I quite liked. That kind of work, they were quite funny, they had some good people on there. And from that, I started watching the original Gogglebox, and now I must admit, I'm a bit hooked. I kind of like it. It's good for two reasons for me. It is funny, I think they're very amusing, and also, I don't watch much TV. I hardly watch any TV whatsoever during the week. So if I do watch Gogglebox, what that means is I can get a bit of a cross-section of what's been on TV that week. So I can have a bit of an idea if anybody talks to me about any random TV shows. It just gives me a slight insight. I mean, I've said nothing on there ever that I've desperately wanted to see as a result of it. But, you know, it keeps me across things. And the other thing with Gogglebox is I do feel I can relate to it quite a lot because I also cannot keep quiet during television programmes. I basically spend the entire time chatting through them anyway. In fact, if the Gogglebox producers somehow happen to hear this, Linda and I would be very interested in getting involved in a future series. I think we'd be really good. I think we're quite funny, and you'll be amazed how much I can accidentally antagonise her while we're watching TV. I think that would make interesting television, if I'm honest. Just a reminder that you can catch me Saturday afternoons between 2 and 4 on radio9springs.com for my weekly show there. That's it then for our first blogcast. That's what I'm going to call it, I think. Hope you enjoyed this new way of doing things. It's just going to be, as I said, me having a cup of tea and having a chat with you, talking about what I'd have been writing about in the old blog. We're moving it forward. Finally, I'm getting towards the 21st century, maybe. Anyway, that is it from me for now. Take care, have fun, and I'll speak to you again in a couple of weeks.